Hello everybody, so this is a Tank Girl build video. This is a model. This model is Tank Girl, the model that was made by cmag or magnet. It depends whether you get it on My Mini Factory or Thingiverse. It's available on two sites. But I had a friend who likes this poster, and they particularly wanted the gun that was in the actual drawing, in the poster drawing, and wondered whether it was possible to do it. So because I'm fiddling around with Blender and trying to learn how to do 3D models for myself to be able to make and create the things that I make, I set about just figuring out whether I could make the gun. So I made the gun. I got it in Blender and made a decent enough replica. Many thanks to cmag and Magnet, because I reached out and got their model. However, I wanted to do a large model, so it's 250% the size. As a result, it didn't fit into my 3D printer and I had to split it into a whole bunch of component parts. I did manage to get the gun into the hand and to adjust the fingers, but I am so not good at this. And when it printed, it actually printed with quite a lot of just holes in the fingers. The gun was perfect and the little monkey was great, but the holes in the hand I had to fill with milliput. Each of the pieces, because they were so large, I had to rotate them in lychee and then support them and then hollow them. Some of this is because the friend that I spoke to about it all and the challenge that came out hasn't seen the process. So I'm doing this build is the entire process from the printing through to the painting and the finishing off. This is what it looks like when it slices. So the slicer program goes through and makes little individual slices of the things, and then you 3D print and you get all of these parts. So I ended up with a bunch of parts to make Tank Girl. However, in the process we came across some LEDs and decided that not only did we want to make Tank Girl, not only did we want to make her with the correct gun, not only did we want to do her with the paint job that's in the poster, but we thought we could light her up. The right side shoulder, when I was printing, I went away. It was many hours that it takes to print, and it ran out of resin, so it ended up a little bit short, and I had to reprint just the top section of it again. So I ran the majority of that right shoulder through a bandsaw and took off the offending bit that didn't print correctly, and then I got the bit that I had printed and got it into place. So there was again a little bit of filling when it came time to fill. There, to get a glowing cigarette butt end and a glowing flame from the rocket required printing in clear resin. So I printed the head and the flame in clear. Unfortunately, I had to print the whole head to get the cigarette to light up. It was a bit tricky trying to drill out the hole, and I should have put the hole in it when I sliced it. Anyway, that's all been done. Then because the lights had to go into it, I had to pre-assemble everything. This has led to all sorts of issues in the painting thing, because instead of being able to just pick the part up and spin it around, everything was pre-assembled. I glued it with super glue and it was partially successful, but the things that came apart again, I ended up using liquid nails and cramps and cramped it together with the liquid nails. I then pre-assembled the bits. The head, I was really worried about when the lights go in it, that it might be too hard to mask off. So I lined the inside of the head with foil, which was a process with little strips of foil and poking it in with my finger with a bit of super glue on it, and then when that stuck, doing the next one. And once I'd got the majority of the mouth and the chin and the face sort of blacked out a little bit with the foil, I then put some cotton wool in the top to block that out. I was pretty sure that there you go. I was pretty sure that the the paint on the helmet and things would do it, but I was worried, would block it out and there wouldn't be light showing through, but I was a little bit worried around the lips and things because the LED is going to be in part of that. After I drilled holes, before I assembled the model, I actually fed wire through it, so that when it came time, like now, to feed the wires through, I could pull the wire back through. This was quite successful going one way, coming up to the head, but it was not very successful trying to go through to the rockety bit. So partly because of the fact that the model wasn't one hollow model inside, it was multiple sections glued together. It was a little bit tricky once it was done to try and find the where the holes were, and I had to take out some of the supporting material. As you can see, when this lit up, there was a little bit still showing through the top, but that got to be not a problem with the painting. I cut the cigar off because I was trying it really hard to mount the light in, but I did it neatly and glued it back on, and you can't tell, it's fine. Then it was gluing the head on and holding it in place, and then threading the wire through for the rocket, which was challenging. But we got there. Part of the reason why it was challenging was the holes were too small, because I was feeding through 4 LEDs, not just one LED. So they were quite a bunch when you finally got them in there. Trying to get the LEDs to be in the right spot in the 3D volume for the rocket plume was really tricky, and in the end I decided to fill it with cotton wool. I filled it, I unfilled it, I filled it, I unfilled it. It took several goes and several whether to glue it or what to do to get the lamps placed in the place where I was happy that they were and that they look good when they light up. Then began the long process of filling and sanding and sorting it out, cleaning up the model. I also made a base out of timber, and there was a piece chunk out of it which I wasn't happy, so I cut a bit out and stuck another bit and rerouted it and made it look good, and once I lacquered it you couldn't really tell. Then there was mounting the switch for the on-off switch into the board. You can see there, that's the board made, and all the way through I kept pushing the button to make sure that the light still lit up, because once it's glued down there was no going back from it all. The process of filling and milliputting and sorting out was long and involved. It took hours and hours and hours, and you just got to do it. So it's any spare or leftover supports that were in things, I had to knock them out, and I had to fill it with milliput, sand it a bit, have a look at it, fill more, sand more. I wasn't happy with how the rocket joined onto the plume, and I also wasn't happy with the way that the hands joined in. So the rocket plume, I had rolled out a piece of milliput and made a collar, and then put that around the bottom of the rocket exhaust to combine that a little bit better and just make it look a little bit more tidy and natural. I also put the pattern back in on the gun, as you can see here, and I put a watch on her arm. In the picture she has sleeves on, and in the model she doesn't have sleeves all the way. The leftover milliputty went to a new rose, as it does always. If you've got things left, milliputty left, you make a rose. I masked off the base with masking tape, and then I also masked off the plume with Glad Wrap to save mucking around with tape, and took it outside and put a base coat of flat black on there. I had intended to try and do a photorealistic sort of a colour scheme, but she's not that type of model. So even though I did spend a lot of time airbrushing the basic colours in on the skin tones and on the sleeves, ultimately the skin tones ended up being more cartoon style to match the the poster, and the sleeves I went through and did lines by hand. So the sleeves, I'm glad that I still masked up the sleeves and airbrushed them, because it was good for getting the shadows and for doing the orange and the yellow. So I'd done all of the yellow with its highlights and shadows with the airbrush, and then I taped it up again and sprayed it on the orange and did the orange highlights and shadows to run along the same highlights and shadows that the yellow had. Removed all of the tape and to check everything and make sure that it had all worked well, but then I had to mask it up the hands and the arms again so that I could spray the uniform and the helmet and all of that. So there's several layers of masking throughout the process. I did a bunch of highlights and shadows on both the front of her chest that's in shadow and the back of her that's not. Then there I took all the mask off and began the process of actually physically painting the model. This has been a quite a long project because it coincided with Christmas, and once again checking that everything's still working. Here's the little monkey and then the bear, which I assumed might have been the same creature. The creator informs me that the bear's a jerk, so that's why the bear's tied on the back. Don't feel sorry for the bear, bear's a jerk. I painted the little monkey and the bear the same colour scheme, so that was a bit of back and forth, and then I also painted the kangaroo-y bit on the top of her head. So there was a lot of details in this tiny little monkey. He's only, I think, not much more than 15 mil tall, and it was quite difficult. An ear broke off at one stage, the tail's broken off twice. He's quite fragile because he's tiny, but he works with the gun, and he looks pretty schmicko even though he's wedgy. I was very happy with him because he does actually look like he's hanging by his neck when you put the string on him. So there's the bear done, doing the highlighting on the kangaroo-y guy. And at this point in time, I had also had a better look at the gun, and I decided that I was going to change from a photorealistic type skin tones to being more like a painting. And so when I started to do the painting of the figure, actually painting Tank Girl in and doing everything, I made sure that I left some brush lines. So you can see me here doing the gun and making it more cartoony. I wanted it to be more combination comic and painted like the painting is. It was just, this was the metal. I did it first in a gunmetal, and so I did all the metallic bits in a gunmetal to get them done. Before I realised that these little silver things are actually windows, I'd painted them in gunmetal, but it wasn't bad as a base coat. Then I went through and started the process of picking out the highlight colour on the back. The khaki, to get the right khaki was extremely difficult, and I'm not sure that I got it perfect, but it looks like the poster enough that I hope I'm not going to be criticised by everyone and their dog that ever sees it and goes, "Oh, it's not the same." Anyway, it was a process of layering and layering and layering and layering and coming back with lighter colours, but making sure that I put the brush lines in so that it looks more arty, and doesn't. I wanted a little bit of the transitions that you normally get when you do washes, but I still wanted to see the painted lines so it looked like a painting. So you can see that there are some lines that have got the really defined lines in the process. That was intentional. And I'm, again, pretty stoked with the way that it's come out. So painting the gold bullets, did all the brass. That was a brass colour, so did the brown on the belt straps and her choker, and then decided to tape up the black to do the black on the gun and on the missile. The missile, when I had further look at the missiles on the Tank Girl comics, most of them have checkerboard on them, so I decided to do that when it came time to do that. This is doing the highlights on the gun, but rather than using silver highlights, I went with a really pale blue. I really like the look of it, and I actually saw this on a full-size version of the gun as well. So that is how it looks, but it's actually not that big when you finally see it in real life. Then it was a process of doing the same, the highlights on the fingers and the hands and the gloves on both sides, and that was more than one blue and over more than one go. The same with the gun, it was 2 separate highlight blues and not on the same at the same time. There was work and drying times and things. Painting the white around the ends of the sleeves, like on the cartoon, on the picture I mean. So I had a laminated copy of the original picture that I'm supposed to be working to, and I used it as a reference all the time. I was looking back and forth with this. That's it in the background there, hanging there laminated so that I couldn't get paint all over it, or I could get paint all over it, it wasn't a problem. And then it was just going to town and doing all the colours. As you can see, the brush angles are a bit tricky because her arms were attached, because the side panels were attached, because of the trying to do everything with the lights in it. It made it quite difficult sometimes to get a really good painting angle, and I got quite proficient with having a spare brush with water on it to take off all of the mistakes. So these, throughout the video, I'm just giving you some stills, so because there is actually the whole process. Hang on a minute, I put this down. The whole process took 43 hours, 47 minutes and 44 seconds of painting and doing, and I've reduced it as much as I can. Some things are 20 times as fast, some things are 20 times as fast, and then 20 times as fast again. And so some of the details of what I'm doing are pretty speedy, and I don't want you to miss things. I've tried to be I've been looking through as I've been editing to try and make sure that the bits that you need to see, you see, and things that are just me doing the same process, you can get the idea of what's going on. So that was the rocket detailing, and then I came through with a silver, a bright silver by Army Painter. It is in their acrylics range, and highlighted bits and pieces, put some highlights on the rocket and on the blade of the knife, and a little bit on the what's it called, Morningstar. I did some highlights on the brass on the bullets, and I also started to do the highlights and shadows on the timber, putting in the grain on the handle of the knife and trying to do a little bit of a grain on the arrow, and also putting some lines in. So there you can see the grain as it turned out, some lines on the straps on both her beam. That's the grain lines. I thought they turned out pretty good. In the process of trying to figure out what cigarette packet was stuck in her hat, I reached out to my friend who challenged me to be able to do this, and he suggested a particular brand of cigars. So I went, yeah, why not? There doesn't appear to be anything, but I can give her fancy cigars. They're Cuban, so they've got a yellow packet. All the yellows, if you saw me use a yellow or a cream in this video, it took at least 3 coats. Some of them took more, and because I mixed the white that I was using into all of the creamy colours that's on a shirt and on the tank lid, that also took many coats because the white didn't cover real well, and I had to go and buy a new tin of white. When it came time to do the face, I was not happy with the colours that had airbrushed. I wanted a bit more skin and a bit less purple. I also discovered that what I thought was a t-shirt on her chest was actually not, it's her neck, and so I had to repaint in that V just below her choker down to the shirt. But because I was redoing the skin tones anyway, I did it at the same time. It would have been a massive bummer if I'd have unmasked it after all the airbrushing, been happy with the airbrushing, and then realised that I had to try and airbrush in some tones. This is putting the details in on the straps with a darker brown, and also on the belt and anywhere else that there was leather. I did some detailing on the green bits, and I also made the shadow more prominent with the green on her chest. I printed some little labels for the cigar, so put some whitewood glue on, just printed them on plain paper so that it glues okay to the acrylic paint, and gave the cigar a label as well, which you'll see in a second, and then made sure it worked and lit up again still. So there's the packet of cigars with the cigar label. Oh, I thought I had a picture of it lit up. There you go. Now we're painting the black in around her because she's coming out of the tank. I really tossed up about whether I was going to try and do forced perspective and a faux her in the tank, but the reality is that the tank, that bit is not the focus of the model. Her face, the cigar and her helmet and things are, so I decided to make my life a bit easier and keep it simple. I'm now putting some of the shadowy bits in on the green and painting the black on the smiley face and a few of the other black bits that had little black highlights. Black on her eyes. I'd already done the red on the bottom of the eye. This is the way that a few of the YouTube people do it, so I just do it that way, and then I paint the white over the top. It saves you trying to do those really fine black and red lines on eyes after you've put white in there. So the arm actually snapped off at one stage and I had to put it back on, so that was me touching all the little bits up and realising that I needed to make the windows. So they were painted in a light blue first, and then using techniques that I saw on the internet, I tried to make them more glazy and 3D looking, more like glass. Painted a hair in, again referring to the reference material and trying to get the overall feel of the way that the picture is, and then painted the eyes in with the coats of white. It took 4 coats to get the white to cover, and 4 coats on the bandage on her arm as well. It was a slow process, but we got there, and the result in the end was good. So that's me doing one of the other coats of white. I don't know whether I showed you every single coat of white, but they happened. And one of the things that was a challenge for me in all of this was trying to figure out what was the icon on her left sleeve. I had no idea what the design is, and I looked through hundreds of hours of, sorry, not hundreds of hours, hundreds of pages of Google Tank Girl things to try and figure out exactly what's on her sleeve. I looked at what other people had done on the models that they've posted, and I couldn't figure it out. And I asked everybody I knew if they thought that they could do. I'll reveal what that is in the end, but that one of the bits that got left to last. In the process, I went back to the website of the creator, Magnet, cmag, and I found out that the third bullet in her sleeve, of her right sleeve, isn't a bullet, it's actually a lipstick. So after I finished painting all of the ropes and doing it, I had to come back and make a silver lipstick and put a lipstick on the same colour as her lips. So that was, I'm glad I found that out again before the end, because again, that's also where I found out the bear was a jerk. So this is just detailing, gradually building up the layers and putting the colours in on different things. There was a bunch of colours to get the band-aids to be band-aidy looking, and I had to do a few layers on the windows. So they had a wash around the outside after they were blue, and then they had progressively lighter blues put onto the window until it came time to do the highlights. So at this point in time, she was starting to be more done than not done. The ropes got a darker shadow on the underside of the ones on her back, and then a different darker colour on the underside of the ones that are at her belly that are in shadow. So there was 2 complete separate paint jobs for the stuff in shadow and the stuff in light. Here's the picking out of the windows and putting the last of the highlights on them, and I think they came up all right. Again, this is not the focal point of the model, so I was really happy to have some fun with it, but I didn't want to make it the be-all and end-all. Weathering the tank. When you're working in such a large scale, I found that the techniques that I use, even though they're the same sort of techniques as what you use when you're doing 28mm miniatures for a war game, sort of RPG game, something like that, when you're doing it on a big model, it's harder to fill in. you've got to use bigger pieces of equipment and not little small sponges. They don't work, and as a result, I think I over-weathered it a little bit and had to come back and put some other colours back over the top to back it off a fraction. But overall, didn't bother to go with streaking grime because, again, it's not the focal point, and I was after an arty sort of more the picture painting. The poster doesn't have the tank bit, so I wasn't focusing on it. This is doing the mascara on her eyes and her eyebrows and sorting out some of the shading that was left to do on the other whiter bits that are around. So you can see the weathering there, just making it look weathered, and the arrow shaft and the feathers on the arrow. There's a little bit more of that, and this is the painting of the darker shades on the ropes. So the rope that's in shadow there was a lot of purples, a purpley hue to the things that were in shadow on the poster, and so everything got, all the shaded colours actually had purple added to them to shade them. The ropes on the other side got a different shadow colour. They got a darkish sort of a greeny, well, they got the sandy colour with a green added to it to make them the shadows similar to what I could see in the picture of the Tank Girl poster. So as I said, we were coming together and getting there. Now, when I came to do the ropey bits on the rope, putting the lightest highlight and the dots in, there's the lipstick going in and all of the studs getting painted with their silver. Again, this is the Army Painter Bright Silver. So around I went and did all of the studs, earrings, found a piece that I found a bit of knocking out that I didn't paint silver at the time. Did the belt buckle and put some highlights on, a few extra highlights on some of the hinges and scratches and things around that I thought needed after I'd backed it off a bit previously. So there you go, lipstick coming into play now. Yep. The process of painting the highlight on the rope, when I get into the very light sand, I mixed white with the sandy colour that the rope is and started doing it. When you do it, it was a long process. So this process here was really, really long. I've edited it to just showing you bits where my head wasn't in the road and where you actually see bits going on. But it took around about 50 minutes, I think it was about 57 minutes, to just paint all of the lines. When you're doing it, there's a real tendency to want to rush through it, and you just can't. You've got to take your time. And I kept turning the model around to make sure that I wasn't making the lines any fatter at the end than they were at the beginning. And so one of the things that I'd say is when you start, just be prepared to do it and not stop. Now we got to a fun bit. I've never used water slide transfer that you print yourself before. I've done it many times with plastic model kits, but I got to say I love this. I got it off Amazon and I just ordered the transfer paper, and I think you get 5 sheets. I went to town. I made so many transfers. Things that are white don't show up white, and so before you can put the white things on, you've got to paint white underneath them. So I went and grabbed some circles and traced the circles on the model, and for the size of what the circles were on the, wow, here's a long pause, for what the circles were for the transfers that I'm doing. I'm going to stop now. Oh, am I going to stop? Oh, here we go. All right. So then I went through and painted the white on. I did actually do 2 coats of the white on the circles when I did them, but by the time I'd finished doing it, I came back and just did another coat over the top. I got this transfer wrong and didn't put enough white underneath it for when I finally did the transferring bit, and so what I had to do was paint over the top of the transfer and print another transfer and then put it over the top. So that were the circles that are going to be white underneath. After that, it was just a matter of put them in the water for about 15 seconds and then slide them off and put them on, and the more that I did, the more it came together really well. This there's no reference of the left hand side. I did find a quote that was on the left hand side of the band which I put on, and so I put that on the left side, but other than that I just made up what was on the left hand, what designs are on the left hand side of her body. In amongst all of this, I reached out because I was still getting frustrated about what this design was on the left shoulder and I couldn't figure it out for myself. So I reached out and sent an email off to Magnet and cmag, both through my mini factory and on Thingiverse, and he got back to me, or they got back to me. That was sexist then. They got back to me. The design on her left arm is actually Banksy's Toxic Rat. So Banksy's Toxic Rat is art that appears around the world. It's a rat with a toxic barrel, and it quite often gets toxic sludge painted on the ground. And so I found a copy of that. I printed a transfer and I did the base coat, and the transfer fitted exactly. So it really is Banksy's Toxic Rat. And I wanted to say a huge thank you to Magnet cmag, because it made a big difference to this model being able to have the right picture on it. So there's Banksy's rat. That's what you'll find. Nobody knows who Banksy is, but that's his rat, and he pops up all over the place in graffiti. So I painted the white bit on all of the bits that were going to be white behind it, and some shadows on the toxic barrel bit and on the muzzle, his nose, and then I printed the transfer, stuck it on, and was super chuffed with how it came out, and then just did a black border around the outside to represent the stitching that would have sewn it on. I thought about gold, but I decided to go black because of the rat being black and white. I think this has come out lovely, and I hope you think that's lovely too. So that was almost all over, bar the shouting. There was the rocket on the back, and I leftover things I stuck around. Put some pads on the bottom. I ended up taking these off and putting some thicker ones on, but I didn't do that on camera, so that when I put the battery cover on the bottom, it does actually lift off the ground. So the battery cover I'd already printed with some holes in it, but I drilled some thicker holes so that the screws didn't crack it. Put some little screws in so that it can be unwound and you can get more batteries in and out, and check that it still worked. What am I doing here? Oh, this is, my friend said, all right, now that we've got it, can we include some real proper sapphires in it? So she now has, the kangaroo has a green sapphire eye, and Tank Girl has a lovely blue sapphire on her choker. If you are doing sapphire gluing to models, super glue will do it, but boy, you've got to hold it for a while before the activator activates it, and we dropped them a few times. My friend had his hand underneath to catch the sapphires in case they fell, because if they'd fallen on the floor, there was no way that we were going to find them. So here is that with all done, pretty much. There's some glamour shots. All that was left was to put the label on the button, the on-off button, and there's the glue the monkey on. We glued the monkey on, hanging great, and broke its tail off and had to glue it again. And then here's the label. Now, before I go and show you the glamour shots, there is actually a word from what we're going to say is the sponsor of this video. So I'm going to stop talking so that you can get the sponsor's words.
Just wishing you a very, very happy birthday, Christian. Love you heaps, mate. And I hope I see you soon. Bye, mate.
Alright, so the glamour shots and the reveal. The reveal is, Christian, this is your birthday present. Happy 50th birthday, mate. I hope she's the right colours. I hope you're happy with everything that's done. I hope you like the gun. It's been a challenge for me to do this project. I have really enjoyed it, even though it's stretched me a bit in places. I've loved every minute of it, and I'm really glad for the extra bit of the lamp challenge, and I hope you like it as a lamp. She looks really good when she's lit up. So everybody else that's watching it, I'm sorry you don't get one as well, but that's the way it is. You can paint your own. I think that the rocket plume has come out great, and I'm really glad that cigars are lit up. Hope you like every detail that's been added for you, Christian, so the cigars being the ones that you like and all of that. It's been really fun working with your dad and chatting with him, and he's been very encouraging as I've sent photos back and forth throughout the process. And there it is. So everybody that's watching, I hope you just enjoy. I tried to show you as much as I can. I will be uploading a couple of build photos like everybody does onto my mini factory, the cmag's site there, and also to magnet on Thingiverse for anybody else that would like to build this and finds these inspiring. I love it when people upload build photos, because sometimes when you're trying to buy a model it can be really tricky to know how it's going to end up. So that is it. As I said, it's many hours of work, and it was truncated by, if I'd have been able to sit down and get stuck into it, it would have been over in, a week. But it was several months. We were trying to work out the other day just when we started it, and between my commitments with family and Christmas things and work and stuff, it stretched a little bit longer than we originally intended. But we're still in time for your birthday, so we're in front there. Thank you, Karl, for challenging me to do this. It was fun to do. And I really hope that everybody else has enjoyed, and Karl, you too, have enjoyed watching it come together. I've tried to be comprehensive but not bore you to sobs. There's, as I said, however many hours, heaps of them. There's 15 hours worth of video. My camera ran out of video memory 15 times in between, which doesn't include some of the computer time and the printing of things, but overall that's, it's come pretty well. So these are the last of the Glamour Shot stills. I really hope you've enjoyed watching this video. If you do enjoy it, please put a like. I don't monetize them so far, mostly so that you don't get ads. If you could let me know if you got ads anyway, because I would be handy to know. So you can leave a comment. If you're going to get ads anyway, I might monetize it and see what happens. I might be able to afford some more Star Wars figures. Anyway, thank you for watching. Before I go, there's the thanks for watching bit, but after that there is a single blooper that I couldn't leave out. So thank you very much, and I'll see you next time.
Christian, just wishing you a very happy Christmas, mate. I absolutely love you heaps, and I'll hope you enjoy what Pete did for you. See you when you get back, mate. Bye.
Happy with that, because that was Merry Christmas, not birthday.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Pete, no. Did I say Merry Christmas?
You did.
No, it's got
So
to
do you
stop.
want to do birthday? All right,
Yeah.
keep going. All right, ready?